Hi, thanks, Navdeep. Pleasure to be here, second year. And clearly, as I saw in the panel, and this, AI is here. And but also we are seeing AI is on a little bit of a continuum, right? I think it's from what we saw, all the use cases that we heard of and people spoke about. On one end, it's all about automation of tasks, incremental tasks. On the other end, it's something really kind of leapfrogging to something very new. And we are working with, and here's where on one end, it's relatively incrementally helping people on their daily tasks. On the other end, there's a fear factor which is there about humans, replacement of humans, etc. But I think the answer is and what we are seeing with clients is the answer is somewhere of where it's incremental in nature. And it's important for us to understand this difference. What we are seeing with working with our clients is that it's largely been, AI has been where humans are working alongside machines. And that has been an important aspect of this. But it has given us tools to look at it very differently, the whole business. So it has allowed us to reimagine things. And when you say reimagine the way we perceive things. So reimagine business, reimagine society, and reimagine people. And I'll give you a couple of examples as we go through this, because I think it's important for us to understand how we are doing this reimagining. It is going to be important framework for us as we go through this. What I'm telling you is actually captured in a brilliant book by our CTO, our Chief Innovation Officer as well, Paul Doherty. It's a book called Human Plus Machine. It's one of the key bestsellers right now on Amazon. So please, a small plug for that book as well. But with that, really what we're looking at is, there was a situation, let me take a situation where this is a telco company, global telco company. In most cases, if you're starting fresh from scratch, you don't have legacy to start with. You're starting with this. You have all the environment available to you, all the resources available to you to start. But if you're a traditional company with a lot of traditional inventory, a lot of physical infrastructure, and then you're trying to bring in all these places, things, technologies into play, you're in a completely different realm there. And what that implies is, how do you bring AI or automation technologies to do this? In this case, this client of ours, the key issue for them was they had a huge network globally of telephone poles, which were just distributed across the entire continent. Now, they did not have an inventory of where their poles were. They had physically people who would go everywhere and only on need, when some things broke down, they would go there and fix it, come back. Now, when they started to upgrade their network, now they needed to even to estimate and figure out what's going on. They started figuring out this was going to be a multi-year task to figure out where all it has to be laid. It was actually turned out to be a pretty simple task when we trained a model, actually quite a deep model. We used both RNN and CNN for this. CNN was more for the last 10% of it. But really what we did was we trained to figure out what those poles looked like. Now, and then we ran it through Google Street View, and we were able to kind of very efficiently figure out where their poles were, got the geographic locations. But what messed up a little were where trees started showing up. Poles were behind trees, or poles were confused with utility poles, not telephone poles. Then you start getting into some more nuances, and that's where some of these networks had to be further refined to do it. But think about it. What was happening in months, now suddenly you had a network which was, you were bringing the power of AI, ability to improve your business case, to now do it within hours. It was a huge savings for the company, and more importantly, the accuracy with which they were able to do it. You're not putting people at risk. Now, there were people who were going out into the field at various, and some in more harsher conditions than others. So I think you can clearly see a situation where we are actually, AI has been helping, augmenting the humans now to help drive their business case tremendously. Now, we've completely reimagined the way their business works now. Now, they've taken this to a completely different realm of how they are processing, now laying the next layout for 5G and others as well. So this has been a brilliant case in this. But as you look at this, the next part of this is AI it allows us to reimagine society itself, which means there is a people component to this, which is important. And this is a demo that you'll most probably see. If you get some time, please step. If you're outside, you can see it outside as well. We heard a few situations of social where AI has been brought to bear on social situations. This is one like that. This actually came out of a innovation contest which was held internally, and really started, and now it has gained tremendous traction. It started with how can we help? We take YouTube for granted, but have you ever thought somebody who's deaf listening to YouTube? He actually doesn't understand YouTube. So what this team came up with was to create, using AI, using image recognition and a deep learning algorithm, to create sign language in an automated manner of every video automatically that's on YouTube. So if you put up a YouTube video, you could just point this at that. It would create the sign language for it and set it up. Now, it seems trivial, but it wasn't there, and it is now available. So now it is and when we did this and we took it back to those, to the disadvantaged children, it was a tremendous leap for them. The ability to now see any YouTube video and do that. Now, we are working with YouTube to see if this can be integrated in a more fundamental manner at the base. But I think it is important as we step into this next generation of AI. And really, here's where we think of AI as applied intelligence, which is not necessarily artificial intelligence, but as applied intelligence. How are we applying it to business, to people, to society? It helps us, gives us tools to do that. So that is critical. Similarly, on similar lines, right? Eventually, the technologies will be there. What we are seeing is people alluded to data and constructs around data. So we clearly see data being a very key element in this, how we are going to use it. While the algorithms are progressing in a tremendous manner, the data systems are messy, especially for enterprises. You find data systems are distributed, legacy, old, new, they don't match. If you're starting afresh, you've got new data. I think if you are taking data from old, it's, God help you. Most probably the people who know the data also are not around. So then how do you figure that out? So you need AI to figure out data that you don't know about, anything. So I think we are seeing these problems coming up. Data is an interesting space that we'll be in for quite some time. The scale at which it is increasing is tremendous. This takes us to the third part of this, which is the piece about responsible AI. It's an area which we are talking about tremendously in this space. And we'll hear more about it from a colleague of mine tomorrow, Aarti. We talk about transparency, we talk about fairness, we talk about bias, but there's a responsibility that comes with it, which means we are responsible for this AI. So that responsible AI, what does it mean for us? It is not a trivial thing, and it is not something that we completely know as well. But it is something that we need to be very cognizant about in coming days and years. And as it evolves, some of it will be on the side of data, some of it will be on the side of algorithms, some of it will be a human element as well, which is how do humans respond to these situations? How do we adapt policy? How does policy and how do governments respond to this. Some of it is coming out in terms of how the European regulation is now asking for, you now need to explain how the algorithms are using the data. So GDPR, if people have heard of GDPR requires you to explain where all you're using the data. India is planning to adopt some version of it at some point. So I think it'll be interesting to see. We don't have all the answers. Some of the algorithms are kind of opaque in some ways today. So it'll be an important aspect. So if you're interested in more on this, please do, if that's an area which is of keen interest to you. And today, it's less of a risk here, but in other economies, there is a financial risk to this if you're not being aware and cognizant of this. So please do look that up. But with that, I think you're in interesting times, and I think it'll be a good, we've evolved tremendously in the last 5 years, 7 years, and it's going to be a tremendous journey in the coming years as well. With that, I hope you enjoy the next couple of days, and good luck. Thanks, Navdeep.